Welcome everyone to another episode of Indie Game Lab Studios. I'm Garth, your host slash game player, game fan, and today I'm joined by Keith Rice, designer and designer, right, of Legacy's Allure. What's your involvement with this game? Do you have, what's the team like? The team composition for this?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me.
Of
Really
course, yeah.
appreciate it. It's honoring and flattering to be on here. And I am, an independent game designer. Started developing Legacy's lore about almost 2.5 years ago on my own. And so I
Wow.
do call myself the lead designer,
Hmm.
but since I'm self-publishing, I really view the whole effort as more of an entrepreneurial exercise, and I
Sure,
kind of
yeah.
identify as an entrepreneur. So I'd actually call myself an entrepreneur before a game
Mm.
designer, which kind of is intentional because
Yep.
I think it's important for new game designers to know that when you self-publish, you're basically undertaking an entrepreneurial venture.
Yes, the game design is only the first step if we're self-publishing. Well, great. Thanks for being on. So tell us about Legacies of Lore. What are we gonna watch today?
So yeah, the reason the stream's a little bit later, I think, than your normal time is
Hmm.
we're gonna try to coincide it with the first game of our weekly tournament,
Oh,
which is usually we have one, sometimes two on a Saturday. The first one is at noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern time, and we're gonna watch one of those games. I'll
nice.
try to pick out one that's going to be pretty interesting. I think we're going to have about 12 players, so we'll have 6 games to choose from. Um, and then yeah, beyond that, I guess we'll talk about high level game design. That's kind of my favorite part of these kind of discussions. I really like to discuss high level, the direction of the game, why certain big
Hmm.
design choices were made. And then, if we want to talk about some individual balance element, we can, but really, I like to keep it high level. So,
Right. I'm on your
whatever
webpage
questions you
now.
have for me.
I'm on your page now. Let's look at this lore tab. What do we got? Oh, it's a PDF. Oh, sweet. Look at all this beautiful. I'm excited to get into the actual gameplay, but look at this art. Did you do the art as well, or was this commissioned?
So, 2 artists did the entire game.
Wow.
The first artist did all units and items in the game, and the other artist did all heroes and hero abilities in the game. So,
Wow.
Um, really fantastic artists. One was based in Poland, the other in Russia,
Mm.
and it was not cheap.
Yeah. No,
That's
definitely not. Um.
something to emphasize to new game
Yeah.
developers. If you want really good art,
Yeah.
I'm even okay talking numbers at some point.
I
Like I can
think
tell you the
our
size of the
viewers,
card pool and what
yeah,
would
our
cost.
viewers are very interested in that sort of thing. We've got a lot of folks here tuning in that are game designers themselves, and we're trying to get behind the curtain. So yeah, as deep as we want to get on that's much
Yeah,
appreciated.
I mean, in fact, I'll also point this out while you're at the website. If you go back
Mhm.
and at the top is a tab that says Kingdom Builder. That, if you just click into that and then look on the left side, you're going to see a list of about 170 cards in the initial release. So
Sweet.
that's all. You can click on one of them and it will
Oh my gosh, yeah,
show
it's
a preview.
beautiful. Okay, so
You can
maybe
you
we.
can double click and add it over to the Kingdom Builder, and we can talk about that tool later. But that's
I love
basically
it.
one of the deck building tools.
I mean, let's talk about it now, or actually, let's talk about how the game plays right before we dive into the tournament. Maybe we can
Sure.
get a little idea of what we're looking at before we dive in. Um,
Yeah,
what?
it'll be easier to explain some of the rules once we're looking at the board, but I'll tell just high level,
Sure.
whoever is listening. The purpose of the game is basically to feel something like chess, only with more customization, more mechanics, and a high fantasy theme. So um, we've been at first glance, people might compare us to Magic. They might even compare us to Summoner Wars, a lot
Hmm.
of other games out there. But I'm very intentional when I tell people initially that if you want a point of reference, It's really chess. This game boiled down is ultimately chess.
Okay.
And so you each have an army, but your pieces are customizable. And then also, unlike in chess, you cannot tie.
Okay.
And there's also an exhaustion mechanic. So in chess, you can keep using the same unit over and over again. In this game, you have to exhaust it once you've used it. And then once all units on the board are exhausted, you'll refresh them and that'll
Oh,
start a new
okay.
round.
Nice. That's a
And
good.
I'll bring that out more once we start watching a game.
Hmm.
But at its heart, Legacy's Allure is a streamlined war game. That's, I think, super important when talking about games. What is the
Yeah.
target audience? So I'll
Hmm.
just go over that real quick. We're trying to hit a variety of people. So, we're trying to hit war gamers, like miniature gamers, like
Yep.
say Warhammer players who are disillusioned with bulky minis,
Yeah.
painting, the cost, the 3-hour playtime per
Hmm.
game, which to me that's just not my jam. I'm an ADHD gamer. If
Sure.
something's over an hour, especially over an hour and a half, I start to struggle. Also, games with long downtime between turns. I love the snappiness of chess's action system.
Right.
So that's intentional. Alternating activations. I go, you go, I go, you go, and you can only do one thing per turn. You have in chess, you basically have two actions to choose from. You can either move or attack. In
Sure.
this
Yeah.
game, you can move, attack, or use an ability.
Okay.
So I just love the snappiness, and so it's Legacy's Allure has been called a streamlined war game
I like it.
in one sense. And then also we're pulling in those CCG players or those card gamers who are
Yeah.
tired of randomness, not just in the game itself, but also just the whole booster pack model. You know,
Yep.
they're tired of that kind of business model because we're doing a little bit of a different business model here. It's not a CCG, but it's also not an LCG. We can talk more about specifically
Yeah. That's
what
very
it is
interesting. Yeah.
later, but it's not a CCG, so it's not gonna, you don't have to take out a second mortgage on your house in order to get competitive. Um, and then from the board game side, because we're trying to hit some war gamers and card gamers mostly, but then we're also trying to pull in some board gamers. I consider Legacy's Lore least of all a board game.
Okay.
In fact, it doesn't even have a board. The map we'll see is actually made of microfiber. It's actually a cloth.
Ooh. Okay.
Um,
No.
but still, we're pulling in some of those board gamers who just, maybe they're tired of board games that have kind of thick, clunky rule sets. And,
Yeah.
the stereotype, I feel like, with board games is just these huge rule books and you get it off the shelf and play it once per month and you always got to refresh the rules. And that's not how I game. I don't consider myself a board gamer, but there are some board gamers in there who, they're looking for something a little snappier, cleaner rule set and something they can dive a little bit deeper into. And so we're hitting some of those people as well.
Nice. Yeah, I love. I mean, so I worked at Wizards of the Coast for a while, and I'm,
Oh,
behind the scenes of Magic the Gathering for quite some time, and I love.
cool.
I mean, I love a lot about that. Obviously, Magic was, the grandfather of that sort of genre, right? But, um, yeah, but to me, my favorite part is the deck building part. And it sounds like we're keeping that with Legacy's Allure, but we're
Hmm.
ditching the chase rares sort of system, right?
We absolutely are.
Okay.
Let's see if there's a game up yet. There
Yeah,
might
let's
not be
dive in.
yet, but yeah, okay. So if you go to Tabletop Simulator, open up the Join Game tab, and I just go up to the button or the search box at
Uh huh.
top, and I type in Allure,
Allure. Okay.
Allure, and right away you're gonna see 5 games going on.
Oh, there we go.
So
Perfect.
let's click into the one. Hmm.
Maybe we should do a U.S. game since we're both are on this side of the for less lag, or will that matter?
It shouldn't be too bad.
Okay.
Let's do just give me 1 second. I want to
Sure.
see what list this one Laro guy is using. Yeah, that's gonna be. Let's try the one with by Empire. The guy named Empire. Give
Okay.
me my planets back is the name. They were playing Twilight Imperium this morning.
I see. Okay. You've got quite a Discord server, by the way. Also, I've checked that out, and you've got quite a few people in there. That's kind of where the tournaments run from. It's kind of looks like the hub for the whole community, the game community, right?
Yes,
Okay.
you hit the nail on the head. That's very intentional.
Hmm.
I have a strong background in running businesses and
Yeah.
marketing, so I always think about how am I marketing the game, and I will say fully, you hit the nail on the head. The Discord is our marketing hub. We do everything we can to get people in there. We market from there. We build relationships, and yeah, we have a whole platform set up so people can find games with one another in TTS. So we can run tournaments in there. Right now, my right-hand man, Speed Robo is his name.
Hmm.
He's running the tournament. He
Yeah.
knows how to do it top to bottom. Um, and yeah, it's been fantastic. Of course, so we were forced online by the pandemic
Sure.
because I started developing the game, but then the pandemic hit, and for a while we thought there, all right, well we'll get back in game stores eventually, but over time, this was like late 2020. You start to realize, oh, okay, this pandemic's not going away anytime soon. So that's when we made this very overt shift online. I put a good chunk of money actually in the TTS mod. I
Nice.
hired people to make a serious mod, and
Okay.
yeah, so
Yeah.
we are doing everything online.
This is a yeah. It's a beautiful board. I'm already noticing first thing is like you're not kidding with no randomness. Like your deck is just all face up in front of you, right? Like so you don't have to worry about what cards you're drawing. You just
Yep. So no randomness, open information, just like chess,
wow. Okay.
and uses the alternating action system, just like in chess. And then where you differ, like I said, is obviously theme. There's
Hmm.
going to be deeper mechanics. Those people who have played Dota 2 or
Yep.
Heroes of Might and Magic are gonna see a lot of influence in mechanics.
Okay.
Not even though the cards look like Magic cards, Magic was actually one of the lowest influences mechanically. Now, Magic did influence us a lot thematically.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
In
Yeah.
fact, we're going to try to create 10 factions that very loosely um, reflect the 10 Ravnica guilds.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, I'm already a big
But
fan of this deck that we're seeing by Empire here. Goblins and lightning bolts. I'm in.
yeah, I mean, this is just for the first three factions of this game, by the way, it's elves, humans, orcs. That's
Okay.
going to give you some serious just Warcraft 3 vibes, just
Yeah.
really simple thematically. And I'll be totally honest, that's been a criticism from some board gamers who are like, "Whoa, that theme is way too generic, way too vanilla for me." And my
Hmm.
response is, "You're right. In
It
this
worked.
area, in this area, we did not color outside the lines at all.
Sure.
And you are allowed to call us uninnovative. I have tried to add in, of course, my own unique units, my
Yeah.
own spin, like even one of the orc heroes, which we'll look at later, is this like samurai inspired orcish blade master that I've never seen before. So,
Okay.
we've
Nice.
tried to give it our own twist,
Yeah.
but yeah, at the end of the day, if you're not into high fantasy, this game's not for you.
Right,
That's
but who's
just
not into high
reality.
fantasy? Like, I mean, sure, the market is sort of saturated with high fantasy stuff, but that's because it's badass. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I can totally picture what's happening right here. These goblin swarms are going to face off against some giant bears, it looks like, and I am all for it.
Yeah, you're really when you make a game of this magnitude that's going to be customizable and have a lot of design space, you're really limited to sci-fi or high fantasy
Sure.
because some of the I'm very very big into mechanical slash thematic tie-in. Like
Hmm.
and that's part of my issue with a lot of board games. It feels like the theme is arbitrary. They
Yeah.
just came up with mechanics and then slapped any random, oh, we'll do railroads this time. It's like, okay. Um, but for me, there
Yeah.
has to be that extremely strong tie-in,
Hmm.
and it's hard to even do that with real life historical settings because, like, if I'm using a real life setting, like, let's say, for example, I try to get really fancy and I'm using like 13th century India, or
Hmm.
I've seen some recent games come out that are really specific in their historical settings.
Hmm.
Well, like how do you imitate something like a teleport effect in that? Like,
Sure. Yeah, 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 exactly. Yeah.
so yeah, high fantasy. It felt right. It's a world I want to be in. The other thing is I made this game partly because was frustrated with certain elements of competitive Magic. And so even though this is not Magic on a board. I'll keep repeating that like a
Hmm.
broken record. This is not Magic on a board. This is not just Magic with geography. This is more of chess. But the game was still partly designed because I was getting frustrated with Magic as a competitive game. I don't
Hmm.
think it was designed as a competitive game, and I
Right.
don't think it works really well as a competitive game, which I
I,
probably don't have to persuade you of that.
no, yeah. I mean, it's clear if you just look at the first set. Like, there's a card that says, "Pay 1 mana, draw 3 cards." Like that was never
Yeah.
intended to be a truly competitive game.
Yeah.
Um,
So this was designed for that serious competitive play
hmm.
while also being able to have an enjoyable competitive experience. And I know it's hard to balance the two, but we've done, I think, about as good a job as you can while still being, and this is the Dota 2 philosophy. This is where a lot of my influence from that game's design comes in. Dota 2, they balance and design around the full-blown competitive esports scene
Yep.
and then let that trickle down into the casual scene, even
Hmm.
though most of the game is casual players. And I kind of took a cue from that because it's worked for them. So
Yep.
yeah, we're gonna sell this to both audiences, but when it comes to balancing, when it comes to specific design, I gotta think first, okay, I want this game to be played in tournaments. I
Hmm.
want it to be super satisfying to watch for spectators.
Yeah.
How do we maximize that experience for competitive players and spectators?
Heck yeah. Um, I mean, you lost me a little bit with Dota 2 because I'm more of a League of Legends guy, but I'll let that slide.
Ouch. Ooh, ouch. Okay. I think this interview, it's been good. It's been good.
So speaking of spectators, though, what are we looking at here? Let's dive into this game. So what are the strategies that we're expecting to see employed between these two players?
I just realized they're using that's okay. They're using a fan made mod and not
Oh,
the actual mod. There's a few disadvantages to that from a spectator reason. Let me see if I can find another game that uses the main mod
okay.
because the main mod has the cards laid out. Well, actually, I'll just take a moment and note that um, this game's been so well received by the community that people have already made their
Yeah,
own mods
that's
for it,
amazing.
which
Yeah.
is awesome. Um, let's
I see
see.
Moonfasa is streaming his game, right?
Yeah,
Their game.
that's
That
not using the main mod.
Oh, that's not the
Let's
main mod
see.
either. Okay.
Okay, let's do this one. Do the one by no have name I want or 172 harmonic, I think is I don't know who made it. It might be the last one on the list. See if you can join that.
Okay. I've got server name. Which server name do you want?
Sorry, I was looking at the creator.
Oh,
It was either no have name I want or
okay.
172 harmonic.
All right. No have name. Let's do that.
And yeah, while that loads, basically there's a main mod that's just simplified as less bells and whistles, which
I
is what
see.
I want
Okay.
for newer players. So yeah, now if you kind of rotate it so the camera is just looking directly over the board and all the drafting below and above is gone, that's what we'll want to be looking at during the battle. Right now, during the draft, we can look at everything. But I'll give a high level overview of draft. Basically, each player comes to the game with a kingdom, or you can think of a deck. We just don't call it deck because we don't draw from it. So
Hmm.
just a little nomenclature issue to help card gamers adjust. But basically, it's a
Yeah.
deck. You bring a deck with 160 gold worth of units, items, and abilities. And if
Okay.
you mouse over any one of those units and hold down Alt which I assume you're pretty familiar with
Yep.
TTS, so you know all these tricks. But basically, in the top right of a card, you're going to see a gold cost.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you're looking at the grunt there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the grunt was 4 gold. So yeah, you're going to have 160 gold worth, and it's just a point system, similar to how Warhammer, is
Mm-hmm.
frequently played at 2,000 points or whatever. That's
Okay.
just a balancing mechanism. So in a full game of Legacies Allure, you're playing with an 80 gold army. So from your 160 gold kingdom, you're going to draft an 80 gold army. So at the start
I
of the
see.
game, they
Okay.
dropped their entire kingdom down below the board, and that's why they're picking from it. So
Okay.
basically, you bring your own draft pool. It's not like in
Wow,
a
that's fun.
MOBA
Yeah.
like League or Dota, you're looking at the same draft pool.
Yep.
And you can deny one another effectively, and also there's bans in those games. There's
Mm-hmm.
not bans in this game. But yeah, you're bringing your own draft pool, and then you're drafting from it. And we use gold matching. So let's say the red player is going first.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say they start off by drafting 10 gold worth of units, items, and abilities.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other player is responsible for drafting 10 or more. And let's say they draft 15. Now it goes back. The other player has to draft 15, at least up to 15. And they just go back and forth until they
Okay.
hit the gold cap, which is 80.
Brilliant. So it seems like maybe a good strategy is to come to the table with very specialized units, right? So you can actually like mold your strategy around what you're seeing the other person play.
Exactly. It's a lot of counter picking,
Love it.
again, just
Okay.
like in a MOBA. And it's going to definitely give some of those vibes. I mean, it's a game within a game.
Sure.
If you, we have some players who are better at drafting, others that are better at playing, and
Mm-hmm.
of course, the best players are good at both. But you can have some games where you kind of win in the draft, and now you're just playing it out to prove that you won in the draft, so to speak. But
That's a
with this
familiar
game,
concept too.
since it's complicated enough, it's never gonna feel like just a pointless game. That's one thing
Okay.
we're very careful with. Because of the lack of randomness and because there's so many mechanics and because the game has so many mechanics built into it that inadvertently create or have a disadvantage to it
Mm-hmm.
that maybe you're not aware of right away, there is a rubber banding effect. Kind of again, let's go back to League, let's go back to Dota.
Mm-hmm.
You overextend in a team fight, you still get the kill, but now you're out of position and you die, or something like that.
Yep.
There's mechanics elements in this game so that even if you do get that big kill or something, it still had to have some kind of cost. I mean, at the very least, you consumed an action or two.
Yep.
Maybe it also put your melee unit out of position. And so that rubber banding effect makes it super, super difficult to predict who's going to win between two, fairly equally skilled players. Obviously, this is like chess, so if you had a comparatively 1200 elo versus 2400 elo player, it's going to be a total stomp.
Mm-hmm.
But generally, despite it being open information, it's very hard to predict victories, which makes games very tight, very intense out until the end.
Looks like drafting finished, and we've got some players already moving up the board.
Yep, I'm going to tell them to see.
Also,
I'm
no have name I want is watching on the stream, so we are obligated to root for them.
All right.
Who I was going to root for anyway because I see lots of goblins on this side, and obviously that's the way to go. So is this deck built around, like, I see this Orc High Wizard, and this art is full art. Is this like the leader or something?
All right. So yeah, let's get into that. I was asking, generally I want players to remove their remaining draft pool after the game starts and then use that space for the graveyard. Hopefully
Okay,
the green player will do that in a minute.
I see.
But
Yep,
oh, also, are you still seeing the button in the middle?
I
Yeah,
am.
you're still
Yeah.
seeing the button in the middle. Okay. That is a TTS glitch as a spectator. I just want to point that out. That
Sad.
begin battle phase and toggle highlight, you just pretend those aren't there. TTS, as you know, though, is
Yep, yep. That's all
finicky.
right. I'll just use the alt a lot so we can zoom in on things because we still have to talk about these cards. I see a lot of mechanics that I don't know anything about. I want to know which things counter which.
Yep. So I'll let you know just real high level
Okay.
what's happening is you'll notice as they activate a unit, they're exhausting it by
Yep.
turning it 90 degrees. Just think of tapping from Magic. And once you activate a unit, you're going to tap it,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're going to go back and forth like that until the entire board is tapped on both sides. And
Love
then
it.
you're going to refresh everything, and that will start as another round. And then at the end of the 7th round, we're going to look at the middle hex, which is unfortunately covered.
Mm-hmm.
We might go over to another game later to see if that's missing because it's a bit annoying, but it's actually highlighted yellow. We're going to look at that central
Mm-hmm.
hex, and if the attacking player has a card, or a unit, I should say, has a unit in that hex, they win the game. And if they do not, they lose the game. So that's another difference between this and chess. Chess you can tie. Chess's victory condition is kill the king.
Mm-hmm.
This is basically a control point. You have
Okay.
that central point on the hex or on the board,
Mm-hmm.
and the attacking player is designated as the one who has to capture it. So it looks like they haven't. I don't know who went first, but
This.
one of them is considered the attacking player. It would have just been whoever rolled higher. That's the only instance of randomness in the game. You
Okay.
start off,
Sure.
roll. Whoever rolls higher is the attacker. It's not a
Okay. But
choice,
that's kind
which
of
is
a big. That's a
intentional.
big like thing though. That's fun. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
And,
so the
and
impetus is on the goblin player. I saw this trench digger goblin move first, so I'm assuming the goblin is our first player, or our attacker.
Yes, so it looks like the Goblin player, and so that faction, obviously the factions have names.
Mm-hmm.
The red faction is Gath, the green faction is Sylvan, the blue faction is Erengard.
Okay.
Again, typical high fantasy vibes. Gath is going to be give you more just like red magic vibes, like chaos,
Yeah.
fire, destruction. In
Lightning
fact, this
bolts.
guy, what he's known for is going all in on that self-sacrificial element of Gath, where they just throw bodies at the enemy
Okay.
and just, victory at any cost. Every life can be expended, that kind of thing.
Nice.
And the best example of that is if you look right in the middle of his board, which, by the way, you notice that blue line
Yep.
kind of at the top and bottom. That's the deployment zone. So when they
Mm.
were drafting, you have to draft your units behind that, and you have 18 hexes. So the max units you could ever have is 18.
Okay.
And over on the side, over on the left, underneath and above the end round button, that's where the hero abilities and items are going to go that define the heroes. Those
Okay.
are technically just reference cards. They're not your hand, they're just reference, and you can just pretend all that text is printed on your hero, which in the case of the red player, it's that Carthul
Yeah.
card down toward the bottom left, and then for the green player, it's more toward the top left, more toward the center, Caladrix. So
Oh, there he is. Full
Carthul's
art.
more of
Okay.
you. Yeah, they're the full art cards. We wanted to show that off.
So
Carthul
cool.
has lower health. He's just your typical glass cannon nuker.
Mm-hmm.
And then Caladrix is more this rogue commando who's sneaky and can get in there. And he has
Nice.
an ability called Backstab, which means he cannot be retaliated against, even though
Okay.
he's a melee attacker. Um,
Seems
but
useful.
if you look, that was a bit of a tangent. So if you look back at the middle of the board at Gath, you see that unit called Goblin Slingshot.
The centerpiece of the deck. It looks like.
And you can, I'm not watching your stream, but
Yeah.
if you aren't aware, you can mouse in while Alt is being held, so it makes the image really large,
Oh
the card really
sure. Yeah.
large.
Let's get in there.
So Goblin Slingshot, like even though you don't know the rules of the game, if you just read the card, you can see it says
Yep.
sacrifice an allied unit within one range, and then the launch range is 3, and then basically you deal damage to the target based on what you threw. So the idea is you're gonna use that on one of your bigger units when they're about ready to die,
Okay, yeah.
or you're going to use it on, if you look behind the Goblin Slingshot, you see those 3 units called the Skorg Archer, Skorg Hellion, and another Skorg Archer.
Yeah.
Those are kind of, here's the combo with his army. So first of all, let's just look at one of those cards, and in the bottom, it's probably a bit self-explanatory what the numbers are. Like the first number is going to be the power, just like in Magic.
Mm-hmm.
The second number might be a ranged value if it's a ranged unit. Otherwise, the next value is its movement, and the next value is its health.
Perfect.
Right? That's
Yep.
probably going to be intuitive to most of your audience.
Yes. Well done.
And I'll also take a moment to note that you're going to see bolded keywords in the text box. If you want to know what a keyword ever is, you can hold Alt Shift to look on the back of a card, and that's where we define those keywords.
It's not happening for me.
Oh, it's not. That's right, because we're in
I'm not
spectator
player.
mode.
Yeah.
You can show it on the Kingdom Builder again later if you're
Okay.
able to head over there. You
Yeah.
can when you mouse over something, a card, you might have seen that you can just mouse over it and it'll show the back. But basically, since there's no uniform card back in this game,
Yeah,
we
that's
just
nice.
use
Yeah.
the back to define keywords.
Love it.
And also just general helpful text,
Nice.
some explanation of how a card might function in certain known confusing scenarios. So anyway, if you look at over on the left, you see Carthul's spells and abilities, and you see how this player has drafted Lightning Bolt level 2 and Battle Fury.
Yeah.
So the abilities you also notice have a gold cost. So when you draft items and abilities, you're effectively taking away from the gold pool that you can use towards your units. So as you draft, you're also playing this game of how much do I want to invest in my hero versus how
Yeah.
much do I want to invest in its support.
I like it.
And the one I want to home in though on is that Battle Fury. I won't
I'm
read over
already
the entire.
I'm already seeing the combo though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically, Battle Fury buffs one of your units. It gives it charging and +1 power. Charging lets it violate that rule where you can only normally move or attack. Charging lets you move and attack in a
Got it.
single action.
Okay.
It's going to also give it power. But what's the downside of all this? Well, that unit's health becomes 1. It literally is going to take damage until it only has 1 health left.
Mm-hmm.
Now, go back to those Skorg units.
Mm-hmm. They all
They
have one
already
anyway.
have 1 health.
Yep.
So you buff them up, you give them additional power, you give them charging, they can slam into something, kill it, and then if it's still alive, you use the Goblin Slingshot to throw it. And so from this 4 gold unit, you might have gotten like 10 damage worth of value, which in this game, 1 gold roughly equals 1 damage. So
Okay.
if you can use a 4 gold unit to do like at least 6 damage, I mean, that's a huge win for you.
Okay.
That's a huge value trade.
Okay. Nice.
And then on the green side, green is more, it's a little bit more of the sneaky faction, I like to say. If
Okay.
you like really outplaying your opponent through better positioning and just setting up uncomfortable scenarios for your opponent,
Mm-hmm.
Sylvan is really good at that. They're also the most complicated faction.
Okay.
The other, besides Gath, the other simpler one is the blue one, Erengard.
Sure.
So if Gath is a little bit more of your chaotic, aggressive faction, Blue, the Erengard faction is a bit more of your defensive, reserved faction, which again mirrors. It kind of mirrors like I guess humans and
Mm-hmm.
Zerg and StarCraft
Yeah.
is another way to think of it. But then Sylvan is, yeah, a lot of it's more lower health units, but they're very hard to kill. They're very slippery. So
Got it.
depending on what play style you like,
Yeah.
we have 3 factions for you, and within each faction, we have 2 heroes to choose from. And each of those heroes have different play styles.
Right. I was hoping there's
And
going to be more than one archetype per like faction. Right. It sounds like there's.
Yeah, and on top of that, it's not like if you play red, you have to play this chaotic self-sacrificial. You can also go more of a standard, just
Big
aggressive
manticores.
build. Yeah, you can also go a defensive. There are ways that hero in particular, Carthul, can play very defensively. So you can get out some really beefy units, put them in the middle, and say,
Yeah.
"Come at me."
Or protect the
Um,
cannon, protect your glass cannon, right? Just get Carthul launching bombs and stuff.
Yeah, because one of
Yeah,
Carthul's abilities, which he didn't draft because this is a different,
yeah.
he plays a version of Carthul that's mostly based around supporting units on the board, not
Okay.
about dealing damage himself. But if you want, you can go all in with Carthul dealing damage, and in
Mm-hmm.
that case, you would put items on him that let him have more mana, more mana regeneration. So he's getting back in a mana at the start of each round because normally nothing refreshes.
Right.
Mana, health. It's a diminishing board state, the
Yeah.
exact opposite of something
Yeah.
like Magic, a card game, which is an additive board state. This is a
Yeah.
war game. You start at full strength and you're
Yeah.
winding down.
Nice.
And so Cartho, you'd get these items that increase his cast range, his mana, and then you'd put things like Chain Lightning level 3 on him, which lets him just hit 4 targets at once within his cast range
Hmm.
and just kind of send this wave of lightning across the board and deal potentially 10 damage in one turn.
Hmm.
But you if you go that direction, you got to build your entire army around it. You
Right.
can't just casually throw in that card and be like, "Oh, I hope that happens." No, like you got to build the rest of your army. How do I support that? How do I protect him? Like you
Yeah.
said.
Definitely. Yeah. I like the deck building potential, and like, so I don't know. He could have come to the table with Carthul and like a sacrifice strategy and a protect Carthul strategy, like in his pool, right? And then he sees he's up against the Sylvan player. He's like, okay, I think building around Slingshot this game is going to be, my better bet against Sylvan. I think that
Yep.
counterplay stuff is just sweet, and I'm loving it.
Okay, actually, I just figured out if you leave this room in TTS and come back into it, that button will be gone from the middle.
Thank
So
goodness. Let's do that.
yeah,
Okay.
that's really annoying. I apologize.
No, it's all good. All right.
And I will say for anyone watching, Tabletop Simulator is an amazing tool. I recommend you use it, but it's also
Eh.
it has a lot of quirks,
Yep.
and you got to just kind of
Oh, that's so much prettier though. Okay. Let's get rid of these buttons. Okay, we have a nice looking board.
yeah. So now you can see that central hex,
Yep.
how it's colored yellow. That's just a reminder. This is the control point. This is
Yeah.
the victory condition, and from a game design perspective, I am a huge, huge proponent of extremely simple victory conditions,
Yeah.
and I'm a huge proponent of thematic victory conditions. I am maybe this is where my weird, argumentative, overly opinionated side comes in, but I'm no, I'll just say it. I'm not a fan of victory conditions.
Okay.
I I realize that they are very popular in board games, and a lot of
Yeah.
great games use them.
Yeah.
I find them to some extent a bit lazy because they're non-thematic. They
Sure.
kind of dictate to the player the value of an action instead of letting it be discovered as you're on the way to the main victory condition. And so this very intentionally, I wanted to avoid that
Hmm.
while also avoiding ties like in chess. So I
Yeah.
ended up with this, which, people can rightly say, hey, a plot of grass out in the middle of the field, that's kind of arbitrary. That doesn't feel super exciting. And my response to that is, you're right. You always got to trade a little bit of theme somewhere, but this just feels so clean and does
Yeah.
what it needs to do that we're really happy with it.
Oh, no have name I want says a little oopsie on us. They might have made a mistaken game or something. That looks like they're backing up something, but that's okay.
It's because he's hoping I'm doing this really exciting commentary on how awesome of a player
Oh
he is,
yeah, yeah. We're
when in
not paying
reality we're
attention to the
just,
game at all.
yeah, yeah. So, sorry, we're just talking game design here
We're
because
just doing
I
overall game. Yeah, no, I like this. I like this because there's. I mean, we can get into the game. I'm sure you've probably got some how to play videos. There's some probably good resources on how to play. we're just watching these guys go to
Yeah,
town.
I mean, I can't answer some of those questions like,
Hmm.
or I can give you a general overview. It's just I tend to avoid getting really nitty gritty with
Sure.
new players because you
Yeah.
don't know what the cards are. But basically, okay, so he just moved his Crag Wyvern.
I was waiting
He
for that
picked,
crag wyvern to get into the action, flying and charging. That seems good.
yeah, so it has huge reach because 4 movement, and
Hmm.
charging means again you can move and
And
attack in a
attack.
single action.
Yeah.
Normally, you can only do one or the other.
Yeah.
So he flew it right into the back line, sniped a 3 health unit, and basically Green's gonna have to deal with that. Otherwise, it's just gonna keep eating up smaller units in the back line. It's one of Gath's best big assassin units because it has 4 health,
Yeah.
so it can tank a blow from quite a few things. Like what'll probably happen is that tree ant below it. You notice that only has 3 damage or 3 attack power, so it can't kill it. But tree ant also says when this unit attacks, root the defender. So
Okay.
if he attacks the crag wyvern, it'll be rooted, which means it can't move
Nice.
this round. Which, again, going back to Dota, there's
Yep.
4 main debuffs in Dota, and I brought them in here. So that's root, which is can't move;
Hmm.
silence, which is can't use an ability;
Hmm.
break, which means your passive abilities are disabled; and then
Okay.
disarm, which means you can't attack or
Yeah.
retaliate.
Brilliant.
So,
That's all. I love how straightforward. Like I easily like you say the word, and I'm like I understand what this means. Um,
right.
and the symbols, same thing. Like I could play this game maybe 90% correctly without a single rule book. I feel like.
You could, and the rule book is super short. The
Yeah.
action loop is very simple, and then the back of the cards explain what the cards do.
I love
So
it,
it's
man.
like it's
Simple is
super
good. Yeah.
self-contained. Yeah, I cannot overstate how much I dislike
Yeah.
games that require this just
Sure.
slog through a rule book before
Yeah.
you can get going. This is designed where the tutorial game, which is only 50 gold, we pare it down from 80 to 50 to keep
Hmm.
it simple. The tutorial game I give to people,
Yeah.
like pretty much everyone can be up and running in 5 to 10 minutes rules wise, and then we can hammer out the game in a half hour easy. And
Nice.
that's the kind of introduction. I want a
Yeah.
game that can be introduced that simply. I've like kind of board game ADHD, so these ones where you got to sit down,
Hmm.
spend 45 minutes learning the game, then
Yeah.
another 2 hours, 3 hours playing, like,
Yeah.
whew.
Sure, but on the other hand, though, this is a game which is meant to have replayability and where you're going to be trying out different armies and stuff. So there's something to be said for someone kind of trying to get into it, understand the
Oh yeah,
rules, get deep, and then like sort of I don't know, build on their knowledge.
that is a fantastic point. This is a lifestyle game for the
Sure.
people who want it to be.
Yeah.
If you want to dive deep, yes, you can dive real deep into this.
Okay.
But if you want to keep it light and just play with the pre-constructed decks that come with a starter kit, where I
Hmm.
even tell you how to lay out the armies,
Okay.
and you just want to keep it casual, play it once a month or something.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do that, and it's still going to be fun. But yeah, you're absolutely right. So I think it's important for designers to be open about
Hmm.
the downsides of the game or when a game is not going to appeal to someone.
Yes.
And I'll tell somebody right away, if you're not a cards on or a text on cards person, if the customization options in a game just
Hmm.
overwhelm you, you don't like the idea of having to browse through 170 cards if you want to make your own kingdom, or
Yeah.
at the start of the game there's going to be a little bit of analysis paralysis for new
Sure.
players because you're going to have a bunch of you're
Lots of
starting in a full
decisions right
board
up.
state.
Yeah.
Once you've played it a few times, okay, you're going to realize 90% of those options are worthless.
Sure.
But still, I tell new players, I say, hey, think of this like chess. You have certain units that are basically pawns, like kind of, well, literally grunts. I mean, you can see the red player, his grunt already died. It
Yeah.
already did its job.
Yep.
You have these kind of pawn units, just like in chess. Move your pawns first, see what
Yep.
your opponent does, build up your board state. First round is more just positioning, and then
Hmm.
second round is when the actual bloodbath begins.
Yeah. And now, how many? I guess I missed it. How many rounds till we check if that Uh,
7.
7 rounds until we check if the attacker wins. Okay.
Yep. And believe it or not, if you have two equally skilled players, pretty much all the time the games are going to go out to 7, and then you're going to end up with like 1, 2, 3. I mean, we've
Okay.
had so many games end up with like 1 unit left on the board with 1 health point or things
Nice.
like that. Like
Yeah.
the games can just be super close, and
I
that's
love it.
why I'll just pitch. We have a really nice YouTube channel where every week we post
Mm-hmm.
professionally commentated and produced games. If you want to see what a
Oh, okay.
game looks like really nuts and bolts, nitty gritty.
Yeah.
Guys talking about the draft, talking about the moves, talking about the strategy.
Okay.
We have those on our YouTube channel. If you want to see, kind of get the feel, get the vibes, and see how incredibly close those games can be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's wonderful. So Joe said put a link to that. Yeah, so we want to send people to your YouTube channel, your Discord channel, and one thing we haven't mentioned really is Kickstarter. You have launched on Kickstarter. It succeeded, fully funded. Have people received their physical cards yet?
So the Kickstarter ended less than a month ago,
Oh, so they have not.
and we submitted the order to Gameland. That's the
Okay,
manufacturer we're using in China.
nice.
By the way, it's another general indie publishing advice. When you're looking for a publisher, email like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them,
Mm-hmm.
and go with the one who's most responsive.
Sure. Yep.
That's my advice. I'm not an expert on it, but
Mm-hmm.
we we started off talking to a few different publishers here and there, and
Yeah.
eventually over time we're like, can we just keep working with these people? Like they actually respond in
Right.
24 hours.
Yep.
And maybe they're not even the biggest one. Maybe they're not even the cheapest one, although the Gameland has had great prices.
Mm-hmm.
But man, you can't beat responsiveness.
Yep.
So we're going with Gameland. We submitted the order. Just numbers wise, we raised 45,000 on the Kickstarter. The
Brilliant.
actual manufacturing costs, we aimed for that 1/5 value. You're
Yep.
supposed to make it your game cost or you're gonna sell it for 5 times the landed cost.
Mm-hmm.
Little hard to calculate that with shipping rates right now,
Yep.
since
Shipping
they're in
rates.
such flux and since they've exploded. But here's the thing. If you're self-publishing and you're going to do what we're doing, which is more of a direct to consumer sales model where
Mm-hmm.
you're basically using the Kickstarter as a glorified pre-order page, and then you're going to
Yep.
sell off your website, which we're going to do since we're small, where our
Mm-hmm.
customer base is only in the low hundreds. It's not even in the thousands yet.
Sure.
We're just going to do direct to consumer. That totally cuts out distributors and game stores. That gives us more leeway on that price point and our margins
Yep.
and what we're allowed to do. So um,
So you
we
probably put in an order for more than the people.
I was just going to say that
Yeah.
we actually ordered basically twice
Okay.
what was actually purchased through the Kickstarter.
Sure.
And in a few weeks in May, we're going to open up the Kickstarter for late pledges and
Not looking good
try
for
to
the
get.
Sylvan player here.
Oh yeah, this is a complete disaster.
Yeah.
And one talking about the skill match mismatch, we do it in tournaments normally, try to match players in the first round of
Mm-hmm.
equal skill,
Yeah.
but this guy, the red player, no have name I want,
Mm-hmm. Too
he's
good.
just dove in and
Yeah.
he's mastered that deck. He's beat me with it, and I'm not one of the best players, but I'm definitely above average.
Sure.
And he's just gotten really good at it.
Yep.
And the other guy that was maybe a new. It's like in
Yeah.
League or Dota.
Yeah.
If you go
Yeah.
outside your standard safe zone,
Got to
you
start
know,
somewhere.
yeah. So he's probably playing a deck that he haven't played much before. Try
Yeah.
something new. But yeah, that was a stomp.
Stop.
That
That
was a
was round
stomp.
3.
Yeah, that was a no. I think it got to 5
Oh, did it? Okay.
because it speeds up really
Yeah.
quickly
Round
toward the end.
one. Round one took like a majority more. That was longer than the whole rest of the rounds combined. But
The draft plus round one
mhm,
will be usually half of the entire game.
love it. I think it was more than
Um,
half in this case, but yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
In a game that normally goes half.
sure, yeah.
Let me see what else we have in the server options in terms of things we can spectate. Or actually, do you want me to create a room and you join it and I can just show you some things real quick?
Sure, yeah.
As
We've
far
got
as
we're almost at the hour mark. Maybe we can dive a little deeper for the last 8 minutes here.
Yep. Let me create
Cool.
a game. It's going to be called Legacies Allure Demo. And it should be up in a second. I actually am going to use the fan-made mod for this because I want to
Nice.
show the entire card pool. And the password will be 1234.
Okay, here we are. Oh, I can pick a color now. Here we are.
Yep. So what I'm going to do is just over here on the side, I'm going to click Layout All Cards, and this is just a visual way to look at all cards in the game.
Okay.
And basically, you can
Beautiful.
see the three factions. At the top, we have Erengard, then Gath and Sylvan, and then at the bottom, you have the items, which are neutral.
Okay.
Just like in a MOBA, you have your neutral hero
Yeah.
items. Any
Sweet.
hero can use any item as long as you pay the gold cost. But then over on the right, you have the 6 heroes and the abilities that are specific to those heroes.
Okay.
Some of them have levels, some of them don't. They all have a gold cost. You can have any number of abilities on your hero. You can even have different levels of the same ability on your hero. So, for example, Aurelia, she has those 3 sun strikes. They only cost 1 gold. You could pay 3 gold and have all versions of Sunstrike, and the reason you do that is because they have different mana costs and deal different amount of damage. So if
Mm-hmm.
you need to finish off a unit that only has 1 health left, well, it might as well just use Sunstrike level 1. You're only
Yeah.
using 1 mana. So you can do that. And yeah, based on what playstyle you want, I mean, there's something for everyone.
Yeah.
Aurelia is very versatile. She can be a great aggressive hero, defensive hero, support hero. Tristan's more of a tank disabler type hero, but he can also be built for damage. Argog is the Orcish Blade Master I mentioned,
Oh yeah.
who has he's kind of based on Juggernaut from Dota. If you
Yep.
look at his Omni Slash ability, that's
Okay, there we go. Whirlwind.
and that
Yeah.
kind of raises the ability of like where are you crossing the line from being a love letter to your favorite game
Yeah.
into just like
Just ripping it
I,
right off.
being unoriginal. And
No.
to be honest, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying like, hey, you know that
Mm-hmm.
really fun experience we had in that other game, let's recreate it in this game. That's what games are about, having fun
Yes.
experiences. And as long as your entire game isn't just, feels like a rip-off or a copy of a game, then
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing wrong with that. And so
Yeah.
I call this game a love letter to my favorite games. And I
Brilliant.
see people coming into like the tabletop design subreddit all the time saying like, if I do this, am I going to get in trouble? Am I going to get sued? Am I being too unoriginal? And my response and the response of the other kind of veteran game designers
Yeah.
is just do it. Your game
Yeah.
probably has less in common with that other game than
Right.
you realize.
Just don't call him literally King Arthur and you're fine. Actually, King Arthur's probably fine. Don't call him Gimli and you're fine.
Exactly.
Um, Sweet. This it looks sweet. I want to build a deck. I'm going to. I mean, I think we already probably saw the deck that I would like to build, which is throwing goblins at people. But I want to explore. Maybe sling some spells, some damaging spells. This seems fun.
So yeah, you see the chain lightning
Yeah.
levels, the lightning bolt levels, and then I'll point out down here. See this item down here, or you have these like spellcaster items
Okay.
that buff it. If you want to go all in on the spellcaster build, which
Right.
that guy didn't, But like you can
Yeah.
put the wizard gear on them where you have just all these
Oh
perks,
yeah.
or maybe you just want cast
It's
range or
expensive.
spell power. And then maybe you don't want him to be a squishy unit anymore, so you're gonna drop a kite shield on him so he gets 3 shield at the start of the game, effectively giving him 6 HP. Now he
Yeah.
can tank a blow from quite a few things, but items in the middle on the right, they have an item slot value. All of your items, those numbers
Okay.
have to add up to 3 or less. Just like in a MOBA, you
I
have
see.
6
Okay.
slots. In this game, you have 3. Some items, though, take up more than 1 slot, and that way you can't have an 80 gold superhero that just
I was
walks
just
out in
gonna
the middle
say,
and sits
like, who
there.
needs units when you can just stack? Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. I guess you do only have 2 hands, except in the case of Argog, maybe. No, he's got 2 hands. Yeah, that's sweet. Well, thank you for showing us this game. Everyone, if you want to check out the game, first of all, go hang out in the Discord community. Second of all, watch some videos on YouTube. Third of all, we you can get copies of some of these cards in your hands, even though the Kickstarter has ended. And how do we do that?
Yeah, actually, I am giving out demo kits right now. So
Ooh,
if anyone wants a free demo kit, just go to
free.
my server and DM me. Yeah, they're a couple versions old, but
Okay.
and it's obviously a lower quality card stock and things
Sure,
like
sure,
that.
sure. Yeah.
But we if somebody says, hey, I'll take this to my game store or I'll show this to my friend group and I'll try to get people in your
Yes.
Discord or on your mailing list, we'll do it because
Yeah.
our average backer amount on the Kickstarter,
It's
I'm
high. I
not
saw it
joking,
was
was
high.
almost it was almost $200.
That's amazing. So you've got super fans.
So if we if we send out a kit for, let's say it's going to cost us shipping, manufacturing, let's say it's going to cost us $20.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we can
At
find
least.
somehow even one fan from that, we
Yeah.
10 times. So definitely worth it. And yeah, this our community's small, but it's very passionate. We're trying to
Yeah.
hit those people who know what they want, and this is
Mm-hmm.
kind of going to scratch that itch for them. Definitely not claiming this is going to be the next Magic or anything like
No.
that.
Please
But
no.
yeah, when someone says that, you're just like pat them on the back and
Yeah.
say, "Have a good one," and walk
Yeah.
out.
Right. Yeah.
But we are finding those people
Yeah. Uh-huh.
who want a game like this, and we're going to try to make them really happy. And I think that should be the goal of every game designer. Know who your target audience is,
Yeah.
and try to make that target audience really, really happy.
Yeah. Well, we need to have you back for more tips on the actual design and development. We were just talking about the game this whole time, but I think as someone who's launched a successful Kickstarter, we've got to pick your brain about like all the nuts and bolts about how to design games. But I guess that's got to be another time.
Yeah, anytime
Okay.
you're more than welcome to, and I appreciate what you're doing for the community here. Love your server. I point people to your server on
Oh,
Reddit, by the way, all the time,
wonderful. Okay,
all
great.
the
Well, thank
time.
you. Much appreciated.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, that's our show for this week. Tune in next week when we are. It's another pretty big game. Is it another six? Joe, what's up next week? Well, whatever, something cool. Anyway, thanks for joining us, everybody, and thank you again, Keith, for joining us. And well, have a good weekend, everyone.
Thank you for having me. Have a good one.